Hi Team Value, JJ here with the second ever episode on this dedicated Alibaba channel. Today we've got a recent interview with Joe Tsai, or part of it. He addresses many things to do with Alibaba quite candidly, which has been a little bit controversial, but it's good for investors to see. He goes back to his early days. He talks about AI. He talks about many things throughout the interview. So this is just part of it today, and I'm going to react to it, comment on it from an investment point of view. So let's get into it. First of all, we start out finding out who Joe Tsai is, where he started out, and how he started working with Alibaba.
I transitioned from being a lawyer to being an investor. I worked for an investor in Hong Kong in their office and focused on private equity investments. And it was really where I learned the fundamentals of investing. I still remember they gave everybody a book, the McKinsey corporate finance book on valuation. And that's when you learn how to do a DCF model. Yeah. And the discipline, the work ethic was incredible. And I love that environment. I still stay in touch with him.
I think it's good to know that he started out as an investor. A lot of top management companies don't actually think like investors. I was saying this to somebody in the Art of Value Patreon community just yesterday who has a business, and he was saying that being an investor, reading about value investing in particular, he's learned more about how to run a business. And I said that it reminded me of Warren Buffett's quote that he's a better investor because he's a business person, and he's a better business person because he's an investor. A lot of people who run companies don't necessarily think like investors.
I started working at Investor AB in 1995. And then in 1999, a friend of mine who I knew from Taiwan, our parents are friends as well, he came to me and said, "You have to go to Hangzhou to meet this man, Jack Ma. He is special. He is kind of crazy, but you should meet him." So I got on a flight and I went to Hangzhou to see him. When I went into this apartment, he had a second floor apartment. I saw multiple pairs of shoes outside. So there were quite a few people inside working. There were engineers, there were customer service people. And back then, Jack had created a website to have small, medium-sized companies from China that are exporters that want to sell around the world. And our first website, believe it or not, at Alibaba was in English language because it was customer facing to the West. There were engineers working away, customer service people doing things. I still remember they had a notebook of, they wrote down every single registered user on the site. And there were 28,000 registered users at the time. Wow. And then after about an hour, I chatted with Jack. I said, "Jack, I have to use the restroom. Can I go to the bathroom?" And I went in there. There were like 10 toothbrushes next to the sink. I thought, oh my God, these people are 24/7 living, breathing in this room, working away. That was the start of the culture. That's the equivalent of a garage, right? I went away very inspired, not just by Jack's vision and charisma, but also the fact that there were a lot of people that are willing to follow him. It was very early. He didn't have any money. And the people that worked there were his students.
The early days of Alibaba, he wasn't in it right from the very beginning. He is a co-founder though, and he obviously thought a lot of Jack Ma in those early days and saw the culture that he was developing there. You know, the hard-working culture, the toothbrushes, people working overnight or prepared to do that, startup culture. You know, scrappy startup culture, working hard. And interesting that it was also outwardly facing, you know, English language to go out to the rest of the world. And he does talk about this in this interview, that it's always been outwardly focused, outwardly looking to the whole world. And of course, that's where Alibaba is today. The international division and the logistics division are looking outward to grow and expand into a lot of the world, not just in China, even though China's a huge market by itself. Now, if you're getting value out of this Joe Tsai episode so far, I'd really appreciate it if you remember to smash that like button to help the algorithm on this new channel to spread it to more people. Thanks.
I think the most important thing is to give people a sight of what the future looks like. At the time, our business is a B2B marketplace. And he said, on the cusp of China joining the WTO, all these small and medium-sized companies want to do business around the world. And Alibaba's mission back then was, and still is, to make it easy to do business anywhere. And our DNA, our culture is to help small businesses to go as far abroad as possible. And that was kind of the vision. And obviously, we developed into a big domestic consumer company as well as cloud computing now.
It's interesting that the growing aspects of Alibaba, if we look at the results, the internal Chinese part wasn't growing so well, cloud in particular, and also China e-commerce not really growing, but the parts that are growing, we see in the last financial results, and I made a video about it on the Art of Value on the main channel, that the cloud and China e-commerce parts aren't growing very much at all. That's something that they definitely have to address, and obviously Jack Ma with his latest memo really wants to get that going. But the international part, the international sales, international e-commerce, going into Europe and other parts of the world, Asia Pacific, where I am in New Zealand, AliExpress is definitely here. So it's growing in mid-20s, and also logistics, Sinal Logistics that they were thinking about IPOing, but they've pulled back on that now because the market conditions aren't right. But these things are growing in the mid-20s. It's actually like a growth company there. They just have to get these major units that have sort of stopped growing or very low growth to reignite again. And that's part of Joe Tsai's job. Will it be Jack Ma as well? Will he come back? We'll have to see.
The scale of the business didn't take off until when Taobao started to monetize. We knew we had a good thing going with Taobao, with buyers and sellers in the marketplace, but we were having trouble monetizing. And there were several efforts in 2006 and 2007 that sort of didn't work out that well. But then we got onto something. We basically monetized the marketplace using search advertising. And so you can imagine you have a Google way of monetizing the marketplace on an eBay type marketplace. And that was unique. That was actually new, pioneered by Alibaba.
They had a good thing going with Taobao, obviously selling a lot and adding advertising to it early on. A lot of people don't know that, I think. They obviously took the Google model as well. Amazon is just doing that now. Amazon is ramping up advertising. If you've been following Amazon, looking at Amazon, you'll see that their advertising is starting to be really big now, but it took them a long time to get around to doing that. It's becoming a big part of their company, and Alibaba was doing it very early on.
Remember, in 2008, our cash flow started to grew exponentially. And that's when we realized we had a really good thing going. I can name a number of competitors, and you know them too. You probably invest in some of them. And I think our when we look internally and kind of self-reflect over the last several years, we have fallen behind because we forgot about who our real customers are. Our customers are the users that use our apps, that are shopping. And we did not give them the best experience.
Admitting that they've fallen behind there, that they did make mistakes. Jack Ma said this in his second memo too, that they can redeem themselves. But I understand in China, the culture is not really... the business culture, they're not used to being people so open like this. So he's admitting mistakes, saying that the competitors are doing well. And Jack Ma did say this too, that he congratulated a competitor, and that was PDD at the time. I think he was specifically talking about, because it was right after PDD earnings, that they can get it together now, that they can compete again. And saying why that they've fallen behind is, admitting that they have made mistakes and that they can move forward from here.
So in a way, we kind of, stepped on our own foot and didn't really focus on where the value is, where we could provide value. And so as part of the reorganization, our new CEO comes in. I'm the chairman, but I work with a CEO who's 12 years younger than I am. And he's very, very user-focused. Focus on the product and the interface and the user experience. And that's the most important thing for us.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see if they can turn it around. They said they're focused on user experience and customers, whether they can right the mistakes that they've made and that they admitted to making, and if they can, meet the competition. Obviously, as long as it doesn't get too intense and there's really nobody with good market share. That is the danger of capitalism, where if there's profit to be made, then others come in and take market share, and then people don't end up making much money. That definitely happens in retail quite a lot. It is known to be happening in the auto industry for many decades. There's such intense competition that nobody makes money. They've kind of lost their way here. Can they get it back with this new management? With Jack Ma in the background, it's obvious to me that he's in the background. Is he talking to Joe on a regular basis? They obviously know each other very well, co-founders from the very start. He was right in there from the early days. As we saw, can they right the ship and return to growth in those sectors, even with the increasingly intense competition in China?
The first thing we did was to acknowledge mistakes. We've acknowledged that in the past, we might have not focused on our user experience. The second thing is to reorganize our personnel, change the organizational structure that fits the strategy. I think this is a very common problem of big companies. Big companies are set in their organizational structures, and then they don't change because people don't like to change. They don't want to change jobs. They are afraid to be fired and things like that. And then you start to fit the company's direction into your org structure, it shouldn't be that way. It should be the other way around.
This reminds me a little bit of what's happening with Google, even though they're still hugely profitable. When AI came along, and they talk about AI later here, is Google lost its way there, that they really have to wake up? They're kind of fat and happy, as I heard it called the other day. I think it was with the interview with Bill Ackman on Lex Friedman talking about that. That they're fat and happy, and now AI's coming along, open AI, and they really have to wake up and not be so complacent. And, maybe Alibaba was in danger of that, and now they have to, because of the intense competition, they have to get back in the game and act like a more scrappy startup, go back to being hungry and claiming market share.
Find what the direction is, and then set the company's organization. So we actually reorganize ourselves within Taobao. Our group CEO, who's also directly the CEO of the Taobao Tmall marketplace, if you look at his direct reports today, they're drastically different from who his direct reports were 3 months ago.
So there's been a shakeup. They have moved things around. Whether it helps or not remains to be seen. I do think that Jack Ma's probably there in the background helping them out. That was evidenced by the memo. The first video I made on this channel was about his second memo that he's made in a few months. This was a long one talking about the company culture and how they can right the ship. I just wonder how much they're talking together.
I think it's human nature that people don't like to acknowledge mistakes. And true leaders and true good managers have that ability to self-reflect and say, I might not have done something right. I did this wrong. I need to change. They need to change themselves. But it is human nature that they don't do that. And I think we fell into that trap, and you have to eat a little bit of humble pie. I think part of leadership is humility. You got to be able to admit your mistakes and say, all right, let's correct course, but here's the new vision. Because employees are looking for that direction. It's very, very important.
So he's saying it's important to admit mistakes. Words are just words also. So can they go forward in the coming quarters to right the ship? Can they change the way that they've been too complacent? Can they turn it into a company that's hungry for more growth and that's well organized and efficient and that can outstrip the competition? Now, if you're new to the Art of Value, you might like to know about the Art of Value Patreon community, which I do talk about Alibaba over there, as well as many other companies and stocks, including my portfolio. Over there, I don't give stock tips, but I do talk about how I invest, how I go about it, how I go and research and analyze companies. So if you want to know more about that, I'll put a link in the description and see you over there. Now, this is only the second video on the channel. I'm going to put a link here to the video that YouTube thinks that you in particular should watch next. So go and see that now if you want to. And I'll see you in the next one. Many more to come on this Alibaba channel.